There are words we use in business every single day without even thinking about them. But what if one of the most common ones is just fundamentally wrong? Today, we're going to look at a term that, once you see it a little differently, might just change how you see your entire company.
What if the single biggest strategic error, the one that can quietly sabotage everything else you're trying to do, isn't about your product or your market or your tech?
What if it all comes down to something much more human? Let's dig into why this one little shift in thinking can be so incredibly powerful. Okay, so let's start with two little words that hide a really, really big problem.
Yeah, it's everywhere, right? It's the name of a department, it's a title on a business card, human resources. But let's actually stop and break that down for a second. Just listen to the actual definition. A stock, a supply, an asset. It's language we use for things, for inanimate objects you'd find on a balance sheet. And what do you do with resources? Well, you use them. You optimize them for every last drop of efficiency. And when they get worn out or outdated, you replace them. It's a cold, transactional way of thinking. So, what happens when a company decides that people aren't resources at all? So what does the alternative actually look like? Well, let's jump into the real-world story of Barry-Wehmiller, a manufacturing company that took a completely different fork in the road. For their CEO, Bob Chapman, it wasn't some business book that changed his mind. It was a series of personal epiphanies. One of them even happened at a wedding that totally flipped his perspective on what leadership is all about. This one idea became their North Star. And this wasn't just some feel-good slogan for the wall. It became the actual organizing principle for their entire strategy. This belief literally changed the job description for a manager. The main goal wasn't just to hit a number anymore, it was to genuinely care for the people in your charge. Your responsibility didn't just end when the clock struck 5. Of course, it's pretty easy to talk about noble principles when sales are up and things are going great. The real test comes when things get tough. And boy, did it get tough. The global economy was in an absolute freefall. Orders for Barry-Wehmiller's equipment just cratered. They dropped by 35%. Layoffs seemed like the only logical thing to do. And this slide just perfectly lays out the two paths. The traditional playbook, which we saw with companies like Lego during their own crisis in the early 2000s, is all about protecting the balance sheet, cutting costs fast. But Barry-Wehmiller, they asked a different question. They asked, what would a caring family do? And their answer was shared sacrifice. Instead of layoffs, everyone, from the CEO all the way down, took a 4-week unpaid furlough. The logic was so simple. It's better that we all suffer a little than for any one of us to have to suffer a lot. So you might be wondering, was this just a nice thing to do, or was it actually good business? Let's take a look at the strategic results. See, the really crucial thing here is that this culture of trust created real, tangible business advantages. First, you build trust. When people aren't scared of being laid off for suggesting a way to be more efficient, they actually innovate more. Second, their performance improved. Happier, more motivated teams, well, they give better customer service. And third, something fascinating happened. Their reputation got so good that when they wanted to acquire other companies, the owners would often choose to sell to them, sometimes for less money, because they knew their people would be taken care of. And the numbers absolutely back this up. A 14% compounded annual growth rate in sales over a decade and a half is pretty amazing. And check this out, an even more impressive 19% compounded annual return to their shareholders during that same time. This wasn't charity, it was a deeply effective long-term strategy. But to really, truly understand why this works so well, we have to go one level deeper. Just think about that for a minute. Every single strategic decision, from a price cut to a new product launch, it imposes a cost on someone. A traditional strategy often puts that cost squarely on the shoulders of employees. Barry-Wehmiller's strategy made a deliberate choice to have the leadership and the entire organization absorb that pain during the bad times. Now, this doesn't mean they never made hard decisions. They're not naive. In 2013, after exhausting every other possible option, they did have to lay off 19 people from one division. But it's how they did it that says everything. They had individual, face-to-face conversations. They provided generous severance, job placement services, and personal follow-ups. The principle wasn't no layoffs ever. It was about handling every single decision, even the absolute hardest ones, with profound human dignity.
And that brings us to the final and maybe the most powerful point of all. Why is this such a sustainable advantage?
I mean, think about it. Your competitors can reverse engineer your technology. They can match your pricing. They can hire consultants to try and replicate your processes.
But how do you copy trust? How do you replicate a decade of decisions that prove you value your people over short-term profit? You can't. These informal, trust-based agreements between people, that is the real competitive advantage. It's a moat that no amount of money can cross. So, the ultimate takeaway here is that the most enduring competitive advantage isn't found in a spreadsheet. It's built through human relationships. And that leaves all of us with a really important question to consider in our own workplaces. When the tough decisions get made, who is asked to pay the price? The answer to that question reveals everything about the kind of company you truly are.